I don't talk a lot about my family's background because I think it's boring to do it. I let all the other hosts do it. I think maybe I've done it once in 10 years, maybe twice. I'll make this the third time, and I'll keep it fairly brief. All started in a log cabin. No. I noticed people try to make their circumstances as dire as possible. I didn't grow up in poverty. I grew up in this middle-class family, quote-unquote, that everybody talks about. My parents, for most of their careers and lives, they didn't hold a job. They ran small businesses. And by small, I mean really small. And, for instance, my mother had been a teacher for a short while, and she and my dad decided to start a nursery school outside of Philadelphia. And that's what they did. And they built, and my father's father helped them and so forth, but much of the building and much of that activity was done by my father. And my mother handled the teaching and the courses and the meals, and they did everything. It was a 2-room school building, and then there were 2 more rooms attached to it. They were 2 bedrooms. That's where we lived when I was very, very young, a baby. And during the summer, that nursery school was a day camp. And boy, did I love that day camp. And we had a baseball field, and we had 2 pools. None of this was fancy stuff, but it was nice. It was nice. My father handled all the lifeguard teaching skills because he was a superb swimmer and he's a very muscular, strong man. Handled everything from the pools to the cutting of the lawn to maintaining the buildings. My mother, as I say, handled all the food and all the activities at the camp, and it was just a lot of fun. In addition to that, my father would get up 5:30, 6 o'clock, earlier than that sometimes in the morning. We always had a station wagon because he would go around and pick up kids to go to nursery school or pick them up to go to camp. And the counselors were required to do the same thing. Today, all of this would be illegal, by the way. All of it would be prohibited. Can you imagine? There was no taxi license or anything like that. You just did it. And as we got older, I can remember when my father would, during the summer when there was camp, when he would leave very early to pick up kids and bring them to camp, he would do this in the evenings. He would take them home, and he would drive several rounds of driving and so forth. They worked 15, 16, 18 hours a day, and they had 3 young boys. I was the middle one. But my father, if I went with him on the way home during the summer with one of his drives, dropping kids off, he would take us for ice cream at Dairy Queen and to the golf range, and sometimes we'd play putt-putt. My mother, despite all of this, always made us dinner, always read us stories at night, always made sure we were taken care of. They did that for almost 20 years. Then they sold it. And what they did next is they started a small store outside of Philadelphia in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania. The store's still there. It's called the Ming Tree. My brother runs it. My wonderful brother, Doug. Nicest human being you'll ever meet. I have a younger brother, Rob. Wonderful, wonderful brother. Just a terrific human being. But they started their shop. They didn't have any background or experience in any of this. A modest shop. Had an awning, I remember that. Even had a funny name. It was called the Ming Tree. Why was it called the Ming Tree? Well, because they sold different types of porcelains. My father would make them into lamps and so forth. Again, no experience. They just did these things. And they did that for I don't know how long, and they're now retired. And they live in a nice home. It's a small home in Florida. And they get by. And they've had a wonderful life. They were never rich. I've never said this, and I don't know that they even know that I know it. But there were years when they ran that store in Jenkintown, Pennsylvania, which is still there, when we didn't make a whole lot of money. And I knew they were struggling. And I knew they had to put bills off. But they always paid them in the end. They always took care of everything. They lived for us, their kids. They lived for us. And in many ways, they still do. We couldn't afford to go to an Ivy League school. I was accepted to Ivy League schools, but we couldn't afford it, and I didn't even want to go, really. We went to a very good school, a state school that wasn't that far from our home, Temple University. And I've always believed, I believe then and I believe today, it's not what school you go to. It's what you decide to get out of school. It's what you decide to get out of life. Whether you go to university or college or not. It's what you decide to make of yourself. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? Well, try it. You only have one life. At least here on earth, you only have one. So, background's very modest and very happy, and probably in many ways very typical American. My parents never, ever were jealous of other people. My parents never, ever said a negative word about a rich person. It wasn't a subject that ever came up. And I can tell you right now, my parents, my father's almost 87, my mother's 81, they are disgusted with this class warfare stuff. And I think their views are reflected by the views of most of you. They knew that dragging another person down, giving the government the power to interfere with somebody's assets and wealth and business and activities would somehow make our lot better. It never crossed their minds. Ever. It was never discussed. They never took a dime from the government. They were too damn proud. And we never missed a meal. Ever. It's just different today, folks. It's just different. I hear the liberal callers call. I see people who are actually doing fairly well on television, but they're in the business of advising Democrats and work for the Obama administration. They're just poisoning our society. They're poisoning people with this hate. Somebody has more than you, you're supposed to despise them. That person can't do anything to you, folks. They're not taking anything from you. They're not taking food off the table. They're not punishing your children. You're responsible for yourself. Some guy's a billionaire because he opened up a bunch of Costco's. Good for him. Now you can go buy 25 pounds of grapes for 3 cents. Good. Who cares? This twisted thinking, these twisted minds, they come right out of our universities. And that comes right out of Marx and these other places. I know people don't want to talk about it. I insist on talking about it. It's completely foreign to who we are. If you think about it, it's completely foreign to your own family and the way you've been brought up. What we have is an experiment taking place on us, on this society. It's been going on for a while, but it's in full practice right now. It's an experiment that's been tried in other societies that has created misery and poverty. It's a complete failure. But these people insist on experimenting with us some more. And there are some of us, there are millions of us who understand how dangerous this is, how destructive it is, how fatal it is. It's like a tug of war. We're digging in our heels and we're trying to pull back and protect our children and our way of life. My father, when he can, calls me every night. And my mother, when she can, she'll join in the conversation. And in addition to talking personal things, my father listens to the program religiously when it's not preempted. And he just can't believe this stuff. He worked in a cigar factory during the Depression. They were poor. His family was poor. When he was 12 or 13 years old after school, he went to work at the cigar factory down the street. He worked till midnight, 1 a.m. Those of you who read his book, Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address Illustrated, you know this. And he did it to help contribute to his family. His family needed money. So when he hears people complain about their lot in life, when you look at the welfare state we have, when you look at all the benefits that we have for people who are down on their luck or people who simply don't want to work, he just shakes his head, says, I can't believe it. And he's right. And there are millions of men and women just like him who think the same way. When the price of gasoline goes up, he doesn't start attacking the oil companies, but he's on a fixed income. They don't go, well, the oil companies are ripping us off. He knows exactly what's going on. Pays attention to the news, the good news, or the good news outlets, I mean. He knows that government policy is intentionally driving up costs and trying to drive down production. And yet, by the way, as a side point, even look at that. Look how remarkable we Americans are, those of us who still believe in individuality. We still get around these government obstructions and create more natural gas, don't we? And that's what my parents would say. We're Americans. This is who we are. This is what we do. I'm telling you all this because in the next segment I want you to hear from Chuck Schumer, who I detest and my parents detest, because they know what he is and I know what he is. And I want you to listen to him with this background and context in mind, because as I say, I don't think my family's unique. I think our experience is quite ordinary for Americans. I think America is exceptional. And so our people are exceptional. And yet our exceptionalism is ordinary for America. It's just unusual for everybody else. But I want you to hear Schumer, because it's important that you understand who these people are and what they want to do to us. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.